Ladies and gentlemen, you're back. You have found the Dreamers Live podcast right here from the beautiful city near the center of the universe, the known universe, Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Oh, everything happens in the Ville, as we call it. Yes.
And we're here in our lair, the Pioneer Dream Studios, and we're so thrilled to be back. This is episode 005.
Wow, we've already done 5.
I
This
know
is so good. You know what I was thinking was, I bet when people were surfing around looking for podcasts, they were thinking, you know what? I think I'm going to get some words of wisdom and a little humor and delightfulness from the city of Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Well, please. Yeah. It's essentially when you look at a map, you see Washington, D.C., New York City, L.A., and then right in the middle, Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
That's right.
That's us.
The third coast.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, that's
the dry coast is what we like to call it. And so 005, and man, it has been a couple of days.
It has been a lot of days.
Yeah, we've had field trips,
yes,
memorial services.
My father always refers to it as the merry month of May, which is like...
it's taken me down.
It's like the new December.
Yeah.
I think we decided
it is,
without the joy of the holidays.
Yeah, man.
It's a lot of things.
It's a Kanye West, feet don't fail me now, because the devil's trying to take me down. And he has taken me down with, there's been health issues,
yes,
field trips,
yes,
memorial services, car issues, the kind of car issues that make you feel suddenly like you're 20 again. Like
you're back in college.
So for example,
yes,
I have a car issue that's working right now, which I've already made an appointment with a diagnostician for the car.
Nice.
And but I can't get there for a couple of days.
Okay,
and so the car randomly dies, shorts out. So you go into a place, you come back out, car's dead. So now I'm in a routine where when I go somewhere, I actually pop the hood, disconnect the battery, go in, do my business, and come back out and reconnect it. And then everybody wants to know if they can help me in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I'm a grown-ass man. So it's to be doing that at this age, it does take you back.
Do you remember back in college when we were fortunate actually to have 2 cars, but they were both like older cars.
Right.
And so we were just glad on any given day, if one of them worked, then we were fine. And you'd like take things out of one and put it in the other.
I'm not going to lie to you. There was one weekend where we had to get back to our hometown in the Ville.
Yes.
And we were in Norman, Oklahoma, which is about, at that moment, it was like a 3-hour plus drive.
Go Sooners.
And between the 2 cars, we had 6 good tires. which is not quite enough. Not really for 2 cars.
Does it take 8?
It takes 8 still.
Yeah.
And so I had to take a tire off of one car and put it on the other car, the car that had the best chance of getting us down the interstate into the hometown safely.
Yes.
And so not since then have I enjoyed this level of car issue.
And here we are again. And if our life were not so crazy busy, because May has taken us down.
Yes.
May and the devil be taking us down.
Yeah.
I could just drive you to your things and we could share one car, but there's so many things we need the 2 cars.
You need the 2 cars. And
it's gonna be okay.
So we're just trying to get across the finish line of May.
Yeah.
And I will say we last week, even though people were listening to all these podcasts at different times, we had a really amazing Dreamers in Tulsa.
It was so cool.
Got to do a 2-part series. We did one at the one and only Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That was an amazing.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, that would be amazing anywhere, but the fact that we're fortunate to have it, just 45 miles from our hometown is incredible. And I thought it was. I mean, the whole thing was very interesting about Dylan, how he didn't want to be a star really, or the voice of a generation, but he just became that.
Yeah.
And then I kept wondering, Woody Guthrie has Oklahoma roots, and I was trying to figure out why the Dylan Center. Was able to be in Tulsa, and that's because of the connection, right?
Right. So Bob Dylan kind of cut his folk teeth by listening to Woody Guthrie and really fell in love with his message and style and format. And I think that's the only reason why Bob Dylan, who is...
he's like a recluse.
He is, but it's more than that. He just does not want to be celebrated.
Yeah, he will not accept
Didn't even
fame.
show up to his own Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, or poet laureate or whatever it was.
Hey, I'll tell you what, if I get the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm going to go.
I'll go with you.
Well, maybe.
We'll do it together.
I mean, if we keep it together.
But anyway, so that was amazing. And then we ended up, a couple blocks away to a new brewery for dreamers, which was the Nothing's Left brewery, which this week feels about right. Nothing's left. And so anyway, it was a great brewery, great beer. And they also had slushies and freezies, and they make you a root beer float. Yeah, and then they had like a 27-foot Airstream in the parking lot that actually did like wood-baked oven pizzas.
Gourmet pizzas. And, it was so good.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing. But the people obviously were the big draw, and so all the dreamers that turned out, lots of new faces, and we did a whole conversation thing, and it was really, really amazing. So maybe we'll talk about that topic at another time and stuff.
But soon. It was a really it was a cool night.
Yeah. Speaking of dreamers, today we are talking about the very first talk we ever did at a Dreamers event.
Oh, wow. We're going back in the vault?
No, yes.
Okay.
So that Dreamers, the first one we launched, whatever that was, 2 years, 3 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
We talked about a whole thing called See It and Say It.
Ah, the old See It and Say It.
Which has kind of become a staple for us in all of our conversations about dreamers because it's so important. But it started because we were going through a bunch of stuff at the house, and as you know, I'm sort of allergic to stuff. I don't like a lot of stuff.
You don't like possessions.
I do not.
Right.
And so I had this box, this kind of plastic file box left over from high school, and it still had papers and poems and all the stuff left over from high school and some college stuff. And
that's because your mom gave it all back to you, right?
Yeah. So this needs to live at your house now.
We were talking about your parents get to a certain age and, they keep your stuff very lovingly in the memory boxes. And then at a certain point, they're like, here's your stuff. And you're like, okay.
Do you want me to throw this away or would you like it?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I got that box and I thought, well, this will be interesting. And of course, I had stuffed it full of poems I had written in high school, all of which were horrible.
They were not.
They were just horrible.
Some of them were bad.
And then this thought kind of came through my mind. For those who don't know, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I lost my dad. And so it started this whole chain of thinking where you think, okay, what happens for Evangeline, our daughter? If one of us passes, what are we leaving her? What does that look like? And all these papers and photos and pictures and poems. And so then I thought I should kind of curate my own memories. I should go through and take the bad stuff out and leave the good stuff so that her impression of me, should I go early, would be like, my dad's a hero. And so I started rifling through this box of stuff, and I don't know why I kept a bunch of assignments from school, most of which were not good. Oh. I don't know why I thought to keep those. And but then I happened on to this one assignment, and it should be noted for the home listening audience that I was not a particularly good student.
You were fine.
I was terrible. I had dyslexia. I needed glasses. I didn't know that. I was awkward in a lot of ways. I was a really late bloomer as a student. And in fact, like in third grade, when you'd start doing like book reports, you had to do like you have to read a book every week.
Yeah,
you would love that. And but I really struggled reading. I'd get one page in and fall asleep. And so when it came time to do the book report, I had no choice but to make the book up. Just completely invent a book. And
nice job.
So where I didn't have the skill of reading, I did have the skill of making crap up. And so I would make it. Yeah. So I made up these entire books, and I would be so compelling in my book report that even though the teachers saw through me, the other kids would vouch for me. They would say, "Oh yeah, I read that book too."
Are you serious?
About the dog and the alien and the thing. Oh my God, that's so great.
And you weren't paying them off?
I was not.
Okay.
But yeah. They may have thought maybe he'll vouch for me someday too. So you were, though, I'm sure, an amazing student.
I wasn't amazing. I was pretty good. I wasn't ever. I was a good student.
But you liked reading, and
I did.
Yeah.
I liked
and
reading.
And you loved a good report.
Yes, I did love to write the essays over the books and that kind of thing. Although I will say that math almost ruined my life. Yeah. Well. So yes, I was actually a pretty excellent student in all the areas but math, and I was so bad at math that it almost took me down. Not a lot has changed.
By the time we got to 7th grade, some things had kind of happened for me, and I could read. And so we were assigned in 7th grade English class, English Lit, I guess, to read Animal Farm. Okay. And I got into the book, and for whatever reason, everything clicked, and I loved it. I mean, I read the whole thing, and I just couldn't get enough of it. The imagery and the whole thing, and so as part of that series, we were required to do a book report, a written book report this time, and kind of do a synopsis of the book, kind of chapter by chapter.
Oh, cool.
And talk about the symbolism and the characters and this whole thing. And I thought, man, this is it. I really want to do a good job this time. I really want, because I'd actually read the book. And so I went through, I wrote the very best report I could. I even did an illustration for the outside of the report and this whole thing. And like a couple days later, we were all sitting in our kind of matching rows there at Madison Middle School and waiting. And our teacher began to kind of go up and down the aisles. And every time she passed a student, she would lay their assignment face down on their desk. And
to build suspense?
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Or just to protect the people who did not score well, or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And
gotcha.
So anyway, she laid my paper down, my assignment down, and went face down. And I immediately turned it over, and right there at the top corner, and teacher red ink was A. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know that I'd ever gotten an A on something like that before.
Wow.
And so I flipped through it, and there were notes and stuff on the different paragraphs and different pages and all these kind of things. Mm-hmm. And then at the very, very end was a note from her, and it said, either you write very well or you use Cliff Notes very well.
Oh, okay.
So, so for the listening audience, tell people what Cliff Notes are, because unless you're a certain age, you don't know.
Back in the day before Google and the interwebs and stuff,
yes,
there were these books that would basically summarize. So if you had a 400-page book, Cliff Notes might be 30 pages.
Yes.
And it would basically give you the summary and the key points of a book, and you could read that instead of reading the whole book, and sometimes get by.
You might be able to fake your way through an
test.
essay or a test.
Exactly, yeah. So it came in pretty handy in college.
When I got to War and Peace, I did the Cliff Notes.
The War and Peace Cliff Notes is 100 pages, though, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was a mess. But yeah, so there it was, and so that was the very first time somebody said to me, "Hey, you are good at writing, good enough that you could be confused for cheating, good enough that it stands out." And it absolutely changed the way I saw myself as a student, but also as a potential writer. And I thought, I'd been told before that I was good at drawing, or that or my imagination, or whatever, but this was something that was different and new, and I really liked it. I really loved words, and I loved putting the words together, and I loved the communication of it and what it said, and that was the first time someone had said that to me, and it changed the way I saw myself.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is a really amazing thing. So I, of course, saved that assignment. But I know, because we've had this conversation before, that you had a similar but opposite experience when you had an experience like that where somebody commented on something.
Yeah, that's true. My whole family is musical. So when we lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico, my mom had sought out a piano teacher there. She wanted someone that was good or reputable.
Right.
And so we went to this crazy lady's house. My brother and I had piano lessons there. Her name was Mrs. Corelli. I'm sure she's passed on. She and her cats now.
Oh boy.
And so
how many cats were there?
There were just so many cats, like innumerable amount of cats. And anyway,
that sounds terrible.
Yeah, and she also it really was. She also had the secret room with a copy machine in the back. And it was lowly lit like a laboratory, and she had books and books of sheet music that she would do bootleg copies to give us. And she was always afraid, I think, that the FBI was going to come and get
bust
her.
down her door and loose out the cats.
And what's funny is I want to be like, you're not selling them, so it's okay, Miss Corelli. But anyway, she was real secretive about that. But I would get bored studying classical music pretty easily and decide that I was going to make up my own stuff. And I still do that. And so I tried writing a song, and I wrote it out on the staff paper and everything. I kind of heard this little melody.
And you're about what age again?
I was 8. Okay. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I am going to take this to Miss Corelli. I mean, look, I can write a song, I think.
Yeah.
So I took it to her, and after we played the classical pieces, I said, Miss Corelli, there's something that I would like to play for you. Is that okay? And this is just a song that I wrote, a little song that I wrote. So I played it for her, and she looked at me and she said, I think I've heard that somewhere before. And that was it. And the lesson was over.
No congratulations, no good work, no
good job for trying,
nothing.
And so I didn't try again to write a song or really even think about it, just shut it down. So I was like 13, 5 years later.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's just the sadness of it.
So what's the first time you remember someone telling you that you're good at something? And what was it? What do you remember about it?
My mom and dad I grew up in a family where they were pretty encouraging and helped us find out those things that we were good at. So I wasn't starving for encouragement, but when you get that reinforcement from somebody maybe outside your family or outside your parents, it's really remarkable. I remember trying out for a play at the elementary school in Santa Fe.
Yes.
And I got the lead role. This was just a school play, and I got to play a boy, which was so cool because I would take my hat off at the end and I let my hair fall down like, look, I'm really a girl. Look, I can do all of this. Everyone look at me. Anyway, but it was a really cool moment, and my parents were so proud. But the teacher was like, you're really good at this.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And that light bulb goes off like, maybe this is something that I could do more of in my life. And it doesn't even take much, but you feel that. And you think, maybe,
Well, I remember growing up, we had, and our different families are different, and I did get some encouragement and stuff, but there was also, it was the kind of affection that was usually kind of came in like little digs, like I was an awkward kid, so you're growing like a weed, and why do you have ski for feet and all that kind of stuff. And so not just because of that, but just in general, I had pretty low self-esteem. So when someone would acknowledge, usually somebody outside the family, because it felt credible then,
exactly,
that I was good at something, it was like water for the soul, man. It was just like, wow, this is life-changing. And
and it made you want to write more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
You want to do more of that.
Well, I think that's the thing. When someone announces that, it does motivate you. You think, what else am I good at? It elevates your sense of confidence. But as we joke, no one comes to you and say, wow, you're really good at rocket science. And you think, great, I'm done. I'll quit now. You just go and do more rocket science. You want to do more quantum physics. You want to do all that stuff because someone has said, oh, you're good at this, And
it grows the good.
Yeah.
I like that phrase that we use sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want to do more of it.
And I think what we got to on the night of this Dreamers event, this very first one, when we started talking about this, we thought, okay, if you stop right now and you think to yourself, you can identify a couple of those experiences for you personally.
Yeah.
First time someone said, oh, you're really mature for your age, or you're really smart, or you're so funny, or you're really fast, you can run really quickly, and all those kinds of things. And all of us can identify it. Some of those things happened early, some of those things happened last week. But what's amazing is when we acknowledge what that does in us, then we can also acknowledge that we still have that same power for other people.
Yeah.
So whether they're adults or kids or whatever, we can look into someone else and see the good in them and tell them with our own mouths, oh, you're so great at this. And it will, even if they're 80, it will change the way they see themselves and bring them up to do more good. And that's an amazing power that we have to do that.
And it is. And it makes me wonder, I appreciate those little nuggets of encouragement, positive reinforcement from people so much. I wonder what it is that makes us stray away from giving them out to people sometimes.
Yeah.
Why do we, do we think it would be awkward?
Well, my guess is it probably comes down to a couple things. Sometimes there's jealousy. Like if we have our own insecurity, if that person happens to be, either we're jealous of them as a person or jealous of them because they're kind of in our same talent pool or whatever, then it's hard to acknowledge that sometimes. Even though when we do compliment somebody like that, who's kind of, quote, competitive, it disarms that relationship most of the time.
It's so interesting. We've talked about this a lot before in musician circles and also in film and video, which a lot of the work that we've done in our career in those two fields. With musicians, there's this feeling or kind of this unspoken that we all have to be competitive with each other.
Right.
So like if you see someone else play, you just wouldn't say anything, not at all, because you don't want to be uncool about it or, say too much to build them up. And the truth is all musicians and anybody creative needs encouragement. And when you do that, and I have to make a conscious effort to do that. So if someone's opening before me or vice versa, I will make sure I go and say, hey, I really liked your set.
Yes.
I loved what you did with this, and that one song was my favorite. You're really doing a good job.
You're so good at trying to find a specific thing, that not just saying good job or great work or I really like that. You will find something specific that they did that you really like.
Yes, that means so much. Haven't you ever wished somebody would say something, you write a whole deal and they say, oh, that was neat. I read your book.
Right.
You're like,
Yeah.
okay, and?
Yeah.
But, if they say, I like the way you did this or the way you did that, I mean, it's just so endearing. But when we do that with other people that might be in a competitive field, or even someone that sometimes you just feel kind of competitive with someone for no reason.
Right.
Like you're traveling and they have a lot of the same ideas or whatever. And so the way you can break that down is to overcome the awkwardness, what I found, and try to make myself do, and go right for the sincere, authentic compliment. And there's no reason to be competitive anymore.
Well, the important part of that too, I think, is that, if you withhold that for fear or jealousy or whatever, that's to say that somehow there is a limit on creativity, or there's a limit on opportunity. Like if somebody else comes up with an idea, well, that's the idea for the universe. I guess there's no more ideas out there. I won't be able to do it. And no, I mean, opportunities are limitless. Creativity is limitless.
Yes.
And what we can do is limitless. So I think by not restraining ourselves there, by acknowledging the goodness of other people, it opens that stuff more than it shuts it down, for sure. I do think there's an element too of the bravery it takes to face potential awkwardness.
It does. Especially when you're, if you're helping with kids, it's easy to say, dude, you're such a good runner. Man, you are funny.
Yeah.
But when it's your coworker, you're like, Trevor, you're so funny.
Where's this going to go?
Yeah, it just kind of weirds people out a little bit.
Well, we've gotten into, trying to find ways to do that on an everyday basis. And I think it's so important. But the reality is, there will be times when you compliment somebody or see the good and acknowledge it, that it probably will be awkward for you for a minute. But the reality is later that person they're going to hold on to that comment. So whether it's about their appearance or the job that they're doing or the way they prepared a meal or whatever it is, they will hold on to that, and they will go back to that later, and it will mean something to them. So, yes, it may be awkward, but it will be considered. It will be part of that process for them.
Sure.
And so that's worth it to do it that way.
It's definitely worth it. And I think that it doesn't, a lot of times I think because we work in creative fields, those gifts or abilities that we have tend to be put up on a pedestal, right? But when I'm having a good day and I'm aware of people outside of myself and I'm trying to see it and say it, sometimes it's something as simple as, like, I was at the grocery store the other day getting the foods. And we have to go once a week because we keep eating the food. Like, keep eating it. But anyway, and there's just a lady that's checking people out, and instead of the normal grumpy attitude, she's just so sweet. She's like, have a great day, sweetie, and just talking to everybody. And so I risked the awkwardness, and I said, hey, I really appreciate your positive attitude. I was like, that is just so nice to be around. And it was awkward for a second, and she was like, thank you. And she just beamed. And I knew that would encourage her to continue to be that way that she was made to be. And so I was willing to sacrifice the potential awkwardness on that day.
Well, and in a tremendously selfish kind of way, those are the people that we want to be around. The people that are gracious and kind to us, the people that see the good in us, the people that acknowledge that, those are people we tend to want to be around, and those are the people that we, it's still it's sincere even though we do it intentionally. It's sincere even though we try and get in the habit of seeing the good. And I'm still, 2 years later from this conversation at Dreamers, still trying to grow that habit in me of being aware of other people, of not always walking into a situation and being so self-aware that I can't see what other people are doing.
So self-conscious.
So you're nervous, you're worried about your appearance, you're worried about whether you're going to look like an idiot, or whether other people are going to be funnier or smarter than you or whatever. Right. And so it's really hard to take our eyes off of ourselves in that setting. But getting in the habit of looking for the good in people, and then it's so important to actually say that to them.
Yes, we've got to say it out our mouth.
Yeah, so we
think stuff a lot. Don't you find yourself thinking? I will think.
Oh my gosh! Or we talk about it to other
so
people.
Pretty, or I love the way she did this.
How many times you've been in a scenario and somebody's name comes up, or they leave the table, and you say, "Oh my gosh, I just love John. He's just the funniest." Well, now John's gone, and the one person who could probably really benefit from all that glowing praise is not there to hear it. Yeah, John's not there. So the whole thing is, yes, it's one thing to see the good in someone. It's a whole other thing to actually tell them, to acknowledge them. So it's, we've talked about that tonight. I said, I think that you're beautiful, and you come to a
thank
place
you.
or
Oh, we're talking about me right
yeah,
now.
so sorry.
Thank you so much. Have a good hair day.
So if I think you're beautiful and I see that and I think that in my mind, I think, what a lucky man I am.
Well, now.
That's all great for me, but it doesn't do you any good. So if I'm just thinking it, what is that good? What good does that do for you? Yeah. So it only does you good if I acknowledge it to you, if I compliment you, if I see that and I say it to you, then it has a chance to grow who you are, and as we say, grow the good, to multiply more good in that process, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think everybody needs that encouragement. I know you know this. Sometimes I get frustrated as a musician because sometimes when you are good at something, I mean, I don't mean to brag, but I'm just saying I've been doing it my whole life. It's like people think you already know it.
Sure.
You know, well, she's a professional, you know, she does this, so she already knows. So I rarely get compliments after I sing. Yeah. I mean, occasionally there's, you know, one or two. And what's amazing is, as long as I've been doing it, you think, am I maybe not good at this? Well, I don't need a lot, but some positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
So I wonder what it is that makes people want to withhold it if someone is maybe gifted at something.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And so I think we've talked about this principle before, that if I'm everybody has days where you're more aware of others. Those are your good days where you're on your best behavior.
Yeah.
And, you know, and gosh, it's such a better way to live.
I think what really sets this whole thing up is that it's really important on all ages. So, you know, you spend a lot of time substitute teaching for kids, and we're around kids a lot. And you know, we have no idea what most kids' backgrounds are that we're with and where they're coming from.
They're living in some tough stuff.
Yeah. And so especially those kids who might be a challenge discipline-wise and all that kind of stuff, to look into their eyes and tell them, hey, I can tell you're a leader. I can see that on you. You're doing a great job, and this, that, and it changes some of that for them. Or looking and not just brushing kids off or pushing them away because they're annoying and they smell bad, but just
middle school.
But just taking the minute just to say, you know, and acknowledging something specifically that they're really good at will change it. But then that doesn't change when you get 40 or 60 or 80.
90.
We still need to hear those things. Yes. So acknowledging the good in people, you know, that never gets old. You never age out of that thing.
No, it's so important not only to see it or to think it, but to say it out our mouths.
It's a two-part process, friends. It's see it and say it. And that's what we talked about today. And hey, speaking of dreamers, we would love to come do Dreamers with you. So if you live outside of the Ville, but you'd still like to do that, normally our Dreamers experiences are somewhere between 20 and 40-ish people, whatever. We can do small groups, we can do large groups, but we can also come to your city and do that. And we can meet you in your coffee shop or your house or your bar. And it's
love to do that.
Really, really cool. Yeah,
it is cool. If you've got, maybe you have a club you're part of, or like a civic organization, or even a church or school. We've spoken in all types of different places. And when we come out, usually we talk about some of these principles, like see it and say it. It's always funny and entertaining. Yeah. And then we normally break people up into just some conversation groups, and everyone always leaves, I know, which is cool, feeling encouraged and feeling like they can human just a little bit better. And
they also feel more connected to the people they're with. Yeah, so if, you know, in our case, we do that with a lot of people who don't know each other. And so when it's all said and done, they leave knowing they could have a conversation with that person if they saw them again, much more than just hi and hello in the grocery store. So it's important. So if you want to do a Dreamers event, please get in contact with us, and we'll do that. Also, in the meanwhile, we would so appreciate your help. If you write a review, that would be wonderful on these podcasts, whether you're watching them or listening to them, it'd be great.
Yes, great chance to see it and say it.
There you go.
I heard it, I saw it, and now I'm saying that it's incredibly amazing.
Maybe you have, so you can review it, you can share it, you can like it, you can subscribe to it, you can tell the whole world about it.
You can take it dancing.
There you go. And you can also email us. Maybe there's something you want to talk about, or you have questions about the Dreamers Live podcast. Well, we'd love to answer those podcast questions for you. So do all that. Anything else?
No, but I hope everyone survives May, and just, you know, if it's not May for you when you're listening to this, just be glad.
Yeah, I think now would be a good time for us to maybe go to the grocery store.
We do need some groceries. You better put the battery back in your car.
All right. All right, friends. Thank you, and we will see you soon. Thanks for watching and listening to the Dreamers Live podcast.
See you next time.